My little sister got married last weekend, which is insane to me, and I wanted to give her something very, very special, so I made her a full table set for 6 people, including a ton of napkins and everything with a custom monogram. This is a really great project for people getting into leathercraft, but it's also quite good to remind you just how hard it can be to make everything by hand. So along the project, I'm going to try and share with you some tips and tricks that you might be able to incorporate into your own projects. The leather I'm using for this project is from the Radermecker Tannery in Belgium. If you've been following my channel, you know I love their stuff, and today is the first time that I'll be trying their Pykara leather, but for good reasons. This leather is full grain, unpressed and uncorrected, so it will show all the marks from the animal's life. The main characteristic I'm interested in though is that during the tanning process it gets saturated in a special oil bath, giving it some very special water repelling qualities. You can see that even when it's wet, water just beads on the surface, and the leather can be simply wiped dry without leaving any trace of the water whatsoever. This is really important when dealing with placemats and coasters, which are prone to get wine spilt on them, or champagne, for example. Obviously, the only real champagne comes from the region in France, Champagne, which is not too far from here, but that's another story. And even when I let the water sit for about 5 minutes, when I wipe it off, you can only barely see a few traces of moisture which dissipate after a few more minutes. So yeah, fine. And bear in mind, we haven't even protected this yet, so this is just the leather as it came to me raw from the tannery. I started by making myself a cardboard template to ensure I'm cutting all my pieces straight and evenly. To make the placemats a bit more rigid and to avoid them slipping on the table, I'll be covering the backside with split pig leather. Not only is split pig actually very cheap, but it has a nice fluffy feel to it which will really help stabilize those placemats when they're on the table. So if you're on a nice wooden dining table, these aren't going to be sliding around the place, which is definitely a bonus. I always use neoprene cement glue on my different projects as it's tremendously strong and remains flexible, so it's a great choice in this application. Make sure you get it on both surfaces of the leather evenly and give it time to dry before pressing things together. Be warned, once pressed together, they are not coming back off. And you can already see how grippy the pig skin split is on the back of this leather. I'm going to build myself a small jig for the corners because I want to cut a nice 45-degree chamfer angle off of those, making each corner perfectly symmetrical and perfectly equal. I've got quite a lot of corners to cut, you know what I mean. I'm using a very fine edge beveler on the back because the pig's split skin is very fine, and a slightly beefier one on the top. Once the edges are burnished, I can go ahead and add a crease line all around using a handheld creaser that I do need to heat up over a flame. Given the size of the placemats, I am using a 2.5mm edge creaser. This will give the edge a slight pop of something that draws your eyes to it and just looks better, looks more finished, looks more professional. But doing this does require a lot of force, and I'm having to press down the leather a lot, reminding me that any slip up can be seen throughout the process and will be seen on the final piece if I'm not careful. Surprisingly, this process took longer than I'd planned and was quite stressful because I knew that every little mistake really would cost me in the end result. I'm using my 3D printer with an 0.2mm nozzle to get my logos printed out, and you can find a video on how I do that at the top of this video right now. I go ahead and cut out my template so that the stamp slots in perfectly just where I want it. It really does help ensure the logo is placed in the exact center and that it's placed exactly the same on every single one of these placemats. I can go ahead and protect my pieces using some leather cream. Obviously this is way too much, but don't worry, this will actually get spread out evenly throughout the 6 different placemats. And the final results are looking and feeling wonderful. I'm really quite surprised how gorgeous and luscious these turn out. Now let's do the coasters. The hardest part of this project is cutting neat circles. I wish I had a cookie cutter or a tool to help me do this in the first place, because there really wasn't an easy way for me to get these looking right, and I still don't really like the look of them. I feel there's so much more improvement I could make. And I feel like the easiest method I found, the most consistent, was using a Japanese skiving knife in a weird like saw motion, cutting it bit by bit, and it sort of turned out okay-ish. I went ahead and sanded these rounder to try and even them out a bit more. I can now bevel the back and the top of all of my coasters. Tokonol is my go-to product for burnishing. It's basically a mix of gum and glue and water, and it helps bond those fibers really strong together. Especially with the friction that you're applying, you're going to be pushing those fibers down and helping that glue set exactly where you want it. It gives you a gorgeous looking finish, which looks much more professional, and it's stronger, and the edges will be protected longer thanks to this burnishing. Edge creasing here is hard, so hard, because it's a round circle. It's really hard to get a consistent edge all around there. The creases also helped show more of those imperfections. So if my circle wasn't perfect, that crease came and really highlighted it in a way that I wasn't too fond of. So what I did was I burnished some more. Actually, I sanded down a bit and then I burnished, and it sort of helped equal things out on those edges. This time around, I am debossing the initials into the leather using a circular pattern, and I'm actually quite pleased with the result, even with the imperfections. That round circular debossed monogram in the middle looks quite fancy, and the edge crease does highlight it quite neatly as well, and overall most of them turned out okay. Now, once these are all nourished, I can move on to the napkin rings, and I have tried a few different patterns for this. I tried a more traditional saddle stitch, edge-to-edge saddle stitch. I also tried something like this, which was a first for me and very interesting to do some lacing, but ultimately they just took too long. Eventually, I did land on something that's more rustic and works well at scale. So the first thing I did was create myself a template, a pattern that I could reproduce over and over, and went ahead and cut my leather. I can start by beveling the back and the top, and then using a French skiver, I can skive the underside of where the slots will be. This is where the layers are going to be building up and weaving into each other. So I really want to try and make sure that this area of leather is as thin as possible to avoid bulk, basically. I'm sure you'll understand in a second. So I punch out the slots and we're ready for the logo to be pressed into each of them. I have a very small version of this, which worked well and looks good straight out of the press, but once the napkins are in it and once the leather has been bent around on itself, the logo sort of disappears, and it works. Yeah, it works. It could be better, but it does work, and it is there, which I really appreciate. All of these do need to be burnished, and we can sort of assemble it together to see what it will look like in the end. But the last step is punching rivet holes and riveting all of these together on a rivet press, and I'll be keeping the final reveal for the final part of this video, so stay tuned for that. So at this point I really have actually finished, but I do have just enough leather for one final piece, and that is a mat for anything hot to be placed upon the table without burning the table. So obviously it's hot, so it will mark the leather, but it's a sacrificial mat and I just want to have fun. For this, I'll be using a backing of felt to give it a bit more space between the hot part and the table you want to protect. I've never done this before, so what I'm going to do is first off scratch up my material as much as possible using a hard tool or even my nails, but nails didn't really work. Then slather on a lot of glue, neoprene cement glue as well, of course, onto my leather and onto the felt, and I was surprised at how much the felt was drawing in that glue. So I went ahead and gave it much more than I would usually, let it dry, and then stuck the two together, and it seemed to work fine. I can then cut it to size, following the leather all around with a sharp knife, being very careful just to cut the felt off. I've never used felt as a lining before, and I don't want it to detach at the first use. So I'm going to add a line of stitching, and for this I'm using my Crimson Hides stitching irons. These are the French tipped, which are slants and not diamonds, which does make a big difference. I just feel like aesthetically they're slightly more pleasing. Now, as this is going to be used with hot items in terms of threads, I want to avoid nylon or polyester threads, and instead I'm going with this gorgeous maisie linen thread, which to me is possibly the best thread out there on the market. It looks gorgeous, it's incredibly strong, and it's very, very regular, and it's a joy to work with. Now, if you're new to leathercraft, this is the saddle stitch method, where each stitch is made by hand. It is a time-intensive process, but it's also very satisfying. It also results in some wonderful looking and very strong stitches. At least now, I'm not afraid of the lining peeling off. The top edges do get a nice round bevel, and I'm ready to burnish it. So, there is only one last item on this list to make the whole set absolutely perfect, and that is a buckload of custom napkins. And why did I decide to make custom napkins? I do not know, because it took me so long to do everything on the machine. This Janome machine has a bit of a history to it, as it was actually my wife's parents who got it for her grandmother back in the 80s, and it was given to me by my wife's aunt, who used to be a professional seamstress, and she was the one who taught me how to use stitching machines. So a huge thank you to her and to her family for giving me this new tool or toy to play with, and providing me an excuse to learn a new skill. I have some nice cotton fabric for the napkins that I first need to cut to size. Now, each napkin starts off as a 50 by 50 centimeter square, and then it gets rolled seams on all 4 sides. As I'm making 12 napkins, that is 48 different seams to do, and that took me a long time, especially because the Janome machine, as wonderful as it is, isn't the strongest when you're piling up layers and layers and layers in those final little corners. But you know what? It's actually really nice to test myself at something different, and getting that repetitive motion in meant that I was really honing in that one simple skill of making rolled seamed edges. Finally, the process wouldn't be complete if all of these napkins didn't have their own little monogram on them. Yes, I am lucky enough to work in a company that has a Fab Lab, which is a place where people come together and do arts and crafts. This is one of their machines. I am so grateful to the Fab Lab in my workplace that I was able to actually play with this and learn how to use it and get these monograms on every single one of these napkins. Now, yes, the monogram is white on white, but I wasn't really sure of how it was going to turn out, and I wanted something subtle, and I feel like this is just a perfect compromise. The monogram is there, it is visible to those who know what they're looking for, and at the same time it meant that any mistakes I might have made along the way, or any choice of weird color combinations, it's a non-issue. So we are ready for the grand reveal of the full set, ready and waiting for my sister, and obviously she got it last weekend, but whatever. I apologize for the color grading in the next shots. I was working with the available light to me at the time, and I wanted to get the present to my sister fast, so I had to do what I could with what I had. Anyhow, let's have a look and see how these all turned out. The most important part is my sister was delighted. The wedding was fabulous, and they looked fabulous, and I'm very, very happy that she was happy with the gift. Me, I can definitely see room for improvement. Having to do a repetitive task like this really showed me the importance of getting my technique perfect. Because there was no room for mistakes, I had to be very careful. At some points in the process, I was pretty stressed about the final outcome, and overall it helped me realize what areas I could cut corners on. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And ultimately, it was a fun project. It was a long project, but it was definitely worth it. The leather from Radermecker is really, really gorgeous. Throughout this video, it has been flawless. I've loved working with it, loved cutting it, and I loved seeing the final result come to life with this leather. I'd like to once again thank Radermecker, and I definitely would encourage you to go and check out the leathers. You can purchase their leather directly from them or find a reseller around Europe. They've got a few now and expanding constantly, so go ahead and check them out. Again, the links are in the description down below. And finally, I want to say a huge thank you to you guys for joining me in this video. If you have any thoughts and comments about the process, about the final result, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'd love to read you guys. As always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned something, and I hope to see you very soon for some more crafting.